thought I'd get you all together and talk about the Fall Grand because you all went to the Fall Grand. And this area doesn't really have a lot of folks going to the Grand at this point. There's only a couple of handful of clubs in Montana and Idaho that are actually active in HRC. So I wanted to get your guys' take on going to the Grand and your experience. So Tyler, I thought I'd start with you because I know Margot knows a lot and I'm going to pick her brain here in a minute, but Tyler, you judge finish, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And was this your first Grand that you went to?
Correct. Yep. Yep.
So give me the perspective on judging finish level at HRC and then taking that into the Grand. What were some of the things that you surprised you, that you were preparing for, you were ready for, just your overall overview of it?
Yeah. So I think the Grand is interesting, right, compared to some other venues in that the Grand has its own rules, right? So I mean, they're actually specifically stating that they're looking for something above and beyond finished, right? Um, so I think it's interesting because we run a lot of finished, we get comfortable running finished, and when you get to the Grand, right, some of those things that maybe we're used to at finished. If you're not reading the rules, you don't understand that next step to the Grand. For me, that was some of it, right? There's a few rules on the line, right? When you sit down at the bucket and you're ready to get your birds, that they're judging a little bit more strictly at the Grand, right? I mean, they're looking for a lot of control, a different level of obedience. So I think if you're not ready for that, right? And for me, I was quote unquote prepared, but then when you get there and they give you your test briefing, and they make sure to tell you come to the bucket under Grand level control, right? And we expect to see Grand level control and Grand level obedience. Um, you know, you know that when you read the book, but when you get there and you watch the dogs, right, that come up and they're right there, they don't move any extra, they sit down, right, they're ready. I think it just puts in perspective that they're truly looking for a next level of obedience and training.
So tell me, do you have one dog or two dogs in it?
I just took one.
You took
Yep.
one. So tell me how it went for you.
Well, saying all of that and the line, it didn't go great for me in that I didn't completely prepare for some of those differences at the line. So my dog, when they threw our first mark, we had a little bit of a delay to the second, and he actually stood up to look at the next mark. And in finished, right, you can talk to your dog. You can still talk to your dog at the Grand, but there's a difference there in judging on if that dog takes any forward progress at the Grand, right? It's considered a break if you're trying to stop their momentum. Well, we had a big left turn
Mhm.
for the third bird, and he's up and he was interested in that second bird, and I said heel for his third bird, and again at a higher level of obedience, that was he was deemed to have been trying to lead the line, right? So for me, we learned really fast that that wasn't Grand level obedience on the line, so we didn't go real far, but we learned a couple of valuable lessons. So
So you only made it to the first series?
yep, I only played the first series, so I drove a long time to watch Margot go farther. So
So were you able even to get the marks or did they just drop you right then and there?
nope, we just got to watch them go down and say thank you and spin on the
Wow.
bucket. So, but,
Wow. That is strict. Are you surprised
but
by that? I mean, everybody says it's harder at the Grand, but I mean, actually running it,
yeah.
were you shocked by that?
So I mean, yes and no, right? So I mean, the books, the rules are there, right? I mean, it says that if the dog tries to go make forward progress, right, you can't stop forward progress at the Grand. Um, so as a finished judge, right? I mean, at a weekend test, we probably would have given the grace that hey, if you said heel, we might have said, oh, dog was creeping or things like that at a finished test. So at the Grand, I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say I was a little surprised that that level was there, but on the same token, everyone's always said it's the Grand, and I mean, the rule book states that, right? So it's not like they made up a rule on the spot. But yeah, I mean, I was a little surprised, but it's a good lesson learned. I think we get used to some of those dogs that stand up, or they take a few funny steps on a weekend test, and we kind of say, like, hope you don't go anywhere. But yeah, we run a national, then it's just something we take a good note and we'll do it again. So,
Well, did that soil you from going to another one, or would you go to another one?
so no, I mean, so the next Fall Grand, so 2024 Fall Grand is just outside St. Louis. So it's actually my family, my sister-in-law lives 10 minutes from the ground, so we're probably going to be at the next fall just because, we have family there, and
Mhm.
be kind of a nice combo trip again, see family and run. So yeah, I mean, is it disappointing? Sure. I mean, we all go there for a green ribbon, but live and learn. First one, and tough rules. I don't think it'll keep us from going back, but I will probably spend a little more time on
Yeah.
line obedience instead of just marking in blinds next time. So yeah,
Well, so you kind of failed on the line there, but what did you think of the marks that first series?
yeah. So you know, two comments. So one is, I mean, they're challenging, right? I mean, again, the Grand has different rules for distance. So you're going to see longer marks at the Grand, right? You're going to see more difficult marks, right? I mean, different factors. But in a national too, whether it's the Grand or the Master National or any other, you're running all day. So I mean, that's another piece that's different that we saw at the Grand. Is, I mean, if you're the first dog of a national event, right? You hope that it's the same test, but sometimes the light's a little different than if you run at noon or if you
Hmm.
run at 5:30. But that's true of every national. But
Hmm.
I would say in general, though, I mean, the series at the Grand that I watched, I mean, long marks, blinds with a lot of factors. They were expecting you to challenge the line, challenge the blind, and do it under a really high level of control. So I would say that it was what I expected there because I've heard a lot of stories, I've looked at a lot of past test diagrams and kind of expected to see some of that, 150, 180-yard marks, through water, under the arc blinds, things like that. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
So you're going to train a little harder next. Did you pre-national train before you went, or did you just
Yeah,
go?
yeah. So, yeah, we all trained together actually. So, yep.
Okay. So Margot tried to get you prepared for it, but you just weren't quite there, huh?
Well, yeah, the line manners got us, which,
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the game. So,
So judging future events, are you going to try and emphasize those line manners a little bit more to folks that
yeah.
are
So, I
running?
mean, yeah, I mean, Darwin, the dog that I took, I mean, Margot's gonna laugh when I say this, but I mean, he's always had a little bit of happy feet, right? So I mean, we've always, especially at the end of a weekend, do a little, oh yeah, I'm ready for that third bird. Just say my name, and in the future, maybe it's, if you're gonna go to the Grand, then it's, hey, come back, sit down, you don't get to leave, and so yeah, I mean, just a little bit of emphasis in the weekend is not a bad thing, but it's also knowing your dog, and I mean, I know Darwin and Happy Feet was that's always his thing. So I mean, if we're gonna go out, then I guess I'm not. I can't say I'm surprised that Happy Feet is what we had challenges with. So
How old is he?
that's a good question. He's 6. I had to think
Mm.
about it.
So you got some
So
time.
he's got some time. Yep,
Yeah, yeah.
yep.
No, that's good. All right. Do you have any other dogs that you hope to run in that at some point?
So yeah, so we just had a litter here, like a week and some change ago. So Kiri's qualified to go. Obviously she was pregnant this year. Uh, so we'll see how this year goes for her. I mean, I'd like to take them both, but some of that'll just depend on whether she's ready. If we have a good test season and she's solid, then I'll take her. If she runs through the season and needs a little tweaking, she's young enough. I'll just take her in a future year.
Hmm,
So.
good. Okay, you mentioned the litter, so tell us about the litter real quick.
Yeah, so yeah, I have 10 puppies. So
10. Oh,
uh,
I thought you had
uh
5.
well, we have 5 left that need
Oh,
homes.
yeah,
So
okay.
but yeah, 10 of them, 7 yellows, 3 blacks, and somehow biology didn't listen. We had 8 males and 2 females. So
Oh,
it's been fun. They're just now, they were born last Friday, so they're what, 9, 10 days old. Um, so doing well, getting big, and yeah. So it's so Darwin, the dog that I took to the Grand, and then Kiri, our female. So they're both HRCHs. Darwin has a master hunter as well, so should be pretty solid hunt test dogs, or
mhm.
just they both waterfowl hunt every year as well. So
Okay.
any and all of the above. Hopefully, we'll find some homes that
Yep,
people want a nice waterfowl dog or maybe a hunt test dog.
sure. I'll trying to get that word out for you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. All right, Terry and Mike, it's your turn. You went to the grant, but I don't think this is your first one, was it?
No, second one.
Second one. Well, Terry, if Mike's not going to get in the picture, at least you get in there a little bit,
Here,
would you?
I'll put it over here so Mike can get in the
Okay.
picture.
Because I don't see either one of you. There you
Now
go.
you got Mike.
There's his face.
So who ran the dog, Mike or Terry?
Terry ran her dog Barley because I made her.
Oh.
And I ran her other dog Nitro and my dog Pliny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you had 3.
We had
Yes.
3, yep.
Yep. And I know this isn't your guys' first grand, is it?
No, it's
No.
the second one.
Second one. How far did you get?
Well, Nitro and Barley went out in the first series and Pliny went out in the second series. And like all the series that I watched, I thought were really well set up, except for our first series is terrible. One, none of the marks like crested the skyline, so you're like down kind of in a bowl. And you got 1 yard that's 150 yards, 1 yard, one is like 130, I think it was. And they're against the backdrop of dark trees. So the dogs already can't see the marks that well. Then it's overcast that day. And I ran during the peak of that solar eclipse.
Oh,
And so like Nitro only seen the first bird down. And almost all the dogs are like that. They're, in the grand, the rule is they have to go immediately to the area to fall and establish a hunt. But not a single dog, I think, did that. They're all just running amok until they stumble on a bird. And the judges had to allow it because no dogs could see the marks. And like Pliny, he's a little more schooled than Nitro, so I was able to get him through that first series. But I thought that series was terrible. Like I saved all my summer vacation to go to this, and then my first series is that, and I was like, this is just BS.
yeah.
It is what it is. It's part of it is luck of the draw in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe running early or running late is one thing, but running during an eclipse, I'm surprised they didn't stop and wait for the eclipse to get over.
Yeah, I watched Pliny because like you're shooting the gun, and I was watching him, and his head was like scanning in the area, but he could never pick up those 2 long marks. And so you just kind of line them up and send them like they're running a blind and hope that they hold the line. But it was, I didn't think it was a well thought out test. The rest of them were really well thought out, I thought.
So at the HRC Grand level, there's no duck calls out there, right? They're just throwing birds out of wingers, and you got to try to pick them up.
Yeah, and you think about like a dog having to track a mark at 150 yards off your gun, and then they can't even see the mark. It's tough,
Yeah. Were they using all drakes, or are they using mixed bag, or do you have any idea?
I think it was a mixed bag,
Mhm.
but it's just the color. You got dark green trees. And the bird never crests the skyline. It's really hard for a dog to pick that up when it's overcast anyway. And when you're throwing them at that distance, that makes it super challenging.
So you got one dog through that series?
Yep.
And was that the series you got ones on? Or did you get 2s?
I got 1s on that because I had to handle them on one of the marks. That's the thing about scoring at the Grand is completely different. Like at a weekend test, you could have a marginal in one series on a blind, and you could have marginal on one series and marks in the next one, and you're fine. But at the Grand, you got like one minor fault, and once you go to 1s, you can never recover your score, right? So if you had to handle on a mark, now you have to do everything perfect for the rest of the test. So it makes it really challenging.
Were you prepared for that?
I was prepared for that, but how do you prepare your dog for not seeing the mark? That was my whole issue with that. I think I kind of let that get in my head, and so the second day, Pliny went out on the second series, and I was aggravated, and I let it get in my head, and so I wasn't playing as clearly as I should have been.
And you got to the second series and failed there?
Yep.
So tell us about that.
Well, they threw it was great series. He threw the 3 marks, and I sent him on the go bird, which was an easy mark, but he faded on the wrong side of the wind, and he started hunting. And if I was like paying attention, I should have immediately sat him and cast him, because that's a handle in the area. But I didn't think about it. Then he faded in the center, and the judge was like, "Put your dog on a bird," right? So now I got to handle him, and I'm already on 1, so I'm out. So I just called him in.
Well, at least they
I'm
told
not
you.
gonna waste, yeah, I'm not gonna waste anybody else's time watching you when I'm already out.
So how are you going to prepare better in the future, or can you?
I don't know. I don't even know if I'm gonna go. It eats up so much of my time off. Maybe after I retire, I'll go again. But like right now, because you're out over 2 weeks, and that's a lot of time off.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I probably won't go until I retire.
Okay.
I think my dogs are completely prepared. Like you said, the first series, you can't prepare for that because you just can't. And in the second series, I let it get in my head, and that's my fault, I would say.
Yeah. Well, when you're an amateur,
Yeah.
right? So you don't have 15 dogs to run, so your learning curve's got to be pretty short, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, Terry, tell me how you did.
Well, we actually, in the first series, we actually ran, excuse me, the morning of day 2. Again, it was really overcast. So the dogs couldn't see the birds really well. They could see the one, they couldn't see the other 2. The one thing Mike didn't say is the field where we had this test had 17 hay bales in it.
Yeah.
17 round bales. And they had the birds coming out from behind the round bales. So that kind of messed with the dogs. But actually, let's see, Barley picked up her first mark clean. She picked up her second mark, a little bit of a hunt, not bad. And I sent her on her third mark, tried to line her up center. And a bunch of the dogs did this. And they all like juked off to the right to go into this. I don't know, it was like a little pile of burrs or something. And I was like, oh geez, here we go. And I heard everybody behind me going, oh no. But it's like, I'm just gonna let her go. So I'm standing, she's heading out to the bird, and I'm just standing there waiting for the judges to say, hey, put your dog on the bird. And it's like, I'm not handling her until they tell me I have to. And I mean, I'll be danged, she found it. She found the bird. I didn't have to handle her. So that was good. But on her blind, again, the way they judge the grand, your dog, when you're handling it, needs to change direction and either be making progress to the blind or to the line. And unfortunately, she was on, I guess, the wrong side of the wind, didn't want to cast into the wind. And so I had, I was trying to give her a right angle back. She didn't want to go right angle back because that was taking her into the wind, which she knows better, but that's either here nor there. But yeah, so I had 3 casts to try to get her to go back, and she wouldn't go. So he said, pick up your dog, because in the grand, you get 3 cast refusals and you're out.
Is that for the entire grand, or?
That's yeah. If you have 3 cast refusals on 1 blind, you're out.
No. Okay.
I don't think that's a hard rule, but it's pretty much like, I would say after your first or second cast refusal, you're already on 1s. And so if you get to 2 or 3, and the consecutive is more so that, like, if you had 2 cast refusals out of 10 casts, is not the same as having 2 cast refusals in a row. But 2 cast refusals in a row, you're on the bubble already. It's really strict judgment.
Well, yeah, that's why they call it one of the hardest nationals, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a whole different level than the weekend test, and I think that's by design. Like, the Master Nationals is really not that much different than a weekend test as far as the rules go. But the Grand, it's like we're going up to the next level of dog is what they're doing.
Okay. All right, Margot, I guess you're the only bright spot in the group.
Oh, boy.
So you actually passed, right?
I did.
Okay, who did you
did.
pass with?
I passed with Flurry.
And was that her first pass?
No, that was her second pass. That gave her grand title.
So were you guys all in the same flight, or are you all in different flights?
Yeah. Yeah. We tried to work it out so we were all together. You know, misery loves company.
So you have the same perspective as the rest of the group for that same first series then?
I do. But I've also been to quite a few more grands, and having judged two of them, I can see it from both sides. I was a little disappointed in that first series, knowing full well that the judges set the test up on a clear and sunny day, knowing full well they were going to have overcast to start with, not even considering. I was kind of an idiot and didn't even know we were having a solar eclipse. So I would have rather have had them change it, and when they go out there on Friday to see it in that overcast condition, to see that the dogs could see the birds. And it was a very, very blaringly loud, difficult test as far as you can't say call it a mark if the dog can't see it. That's always been my theory. So in my opinion, they could have moved the test a little bit to the right and ran at a little different angle and gotten a little more light into that glade, depending on how they were running it.
Well,
But-
was the sun in your face, or was it behind you?
Well, there really wasn't any sun. They typically try to set up these tests so that the sun is going east to west and you're running north to south. So there's really not too many opportunities for the dogs to have the sun in their eyes, or the handlers have the sun in their eyes, typically.
Yeah.
As much as they can try to do that.
So Flurry must have seen those marks then.
She did. She kind of handled the marks about the same as the other dogs. But she just happened to run at that time when the wind was in her favor. So knowing how to run her and having the wind work for her, it just worked out really well. And then I also ran Mel too. So I ran two dogs.
And Mel went out in the first series?
No, Mel actually came out of the first series on a pair of twos as well. So he had really good marks, and he lined the blind.
Now, is that experience talking there that got you through that? Because you've ran this before?
Yes and no. I think there's a fair amount of luck that goes with this. Having some knowledge of how they're judging it helps a lot. Having sat in that chair and really understand what's going through their heads, but also having trained with people like Clark Kennington to pre-grand train has given me a lot more insight on how to run those tests and be successful as well.
Now, have you judged a grand?
Yes, twice.
So you have, so you could see it from both sides then.
I could.
Yeah. Well, so you got Flurry and Mel through the first series. Then what happened in the second?
So the second series, it was really kind of scattered because the way we were running, we had to be reshuffled, and half of our flight wasn't completed, and they wanted us to start running over at the next test. And I kind of raised a red flag, said, you really can't do that, because Mike was the first dog to run in the second series with Pliny, but he hadn't seen any of the briefings or the test dog because he was over finishing up with Terry at the first series. So, you know, we kind of had a little conversation. I'm like, you can't do that. I said, he was over there with his wife. So we got it through, and Mike ended up running first anyway, but we did get the briefing and understand the test. So I actually ran Flurry first. She did a really nice job. She did cheat the water on the short bird, but it didn't seem to bother her. And then I think she maybe one or two whistled the blind. And then she was getting a little loose on the line. So she was standing up and she was leaving before I could, you know, kick her off. I'd take the bird and she'd just leave. But she came out of there with a pair of twos as well. But I knew that I needed to go back that evening and have a conversation with her about sitting down and staying put. But knowing when to say sit, and as long as she's not moving forward and you say sit, you're fine. But if the dog is anywhere moving forward and you say sit or here, you're going to get considered a control break, and that's not allowed. Mel actually had better line manners for whatever reason. He just seemed like he was being better behaved on the line. But on his go bird, he had a Mel moment and basically went across the water and started to set up a hunt on the shoreline. And he stayed there just long enough to show that he wasn't hung up in back drag scent, where they said, put your dog on a bird. So I one casted him back and he picked up the bird, and then he picked up the other two birds clean and he lined that blind as well. So he's running good blinds. And then we had an honor as well on that one. So, so he came out of there with a pair of ones because he had a handle to the area.
So you brought up a good point. So how many dogs were in each flight, roughly?
Gosh, I think our flight had only like 80 something dogs to start with, Terry. 88 dogs.
Yeah, 88 dogs.
So as you move to the next series, then 88 dogs ran, and now you're running in the same series that those 88 dogs ran, and the scent is got to be something you don't normally train for with that much drag back and just
that back drag scent is really, you know, can be a killer for you for sure. So, and my phone is dying.
Your phone is dying. Well, hurry up then. Tell us about how it finished. So you got one dog through.
Yes, I did. And so the third series was another land series because you alternate, you know, depending on what you start on. We started on a land series, then we had a water series, then our next series was another land series. That was a tricky test. And I will say, other than the first day, the bird placement on every test was very, very well thought out. So the second day we were actually up on top of a mound running into a field that had some strips mowed in it, but they were very thin, wispy rows, but the cover was tall. So it was tall, but you could see the dog the whole way. And a lot of dogs were having to be handled on, there was a left-hand bird that kind of came out and it was very much an illusion mark from the dog's point of view. So I brought Flurry out, and I think the go bird was just a little short bird down off the hill. And then I sent her for the middle bird, and she actually broke through the cover, got that bird okay. But then when I sent her for that long left-hand bird, she got lost, and they said, go ahead and put her on a bird. So she handled really well. Then I ran the blind. I think she 1 or 2 whistled the blind. So she came out of there with a pair of ones. So that was my one day that I could get away with, you know, my mulligan, as we call it. And then Mel, I brought him out, and I came out with a little bit of a different strategy where I picked up that outside bird second. And I, let me back up. No, I picked up the middle bird second, but I sent him too strong. And just as he was coming around from the blind, they started to say, put your dog on a bird, and he was coming in and back to the area. So I stopped him and cast him. But I went ahead and picked up the other bird and ran the blind, which he again lined the blind again. And I was going to let the judges judge it. I wasn't sure if they were going to look at it like it was a handle in the area. Because if he did have a handle to the area, that gave him his second set of ones and he would be out. Unfortunately, they thought that it was a handle to the area. So, but I kept playing. I said, I'm going to let them judge. I'm going to make them earn their burger. So I lost Mel in the third series. And then the last series was a very technical water series. Technical water, pretty much, I think it was, Mike, was it around the horn? Left, middle, right?
Yes, I believe it was.
Okay, so the first
It was
bird
the
out
left bird, the tough
the
one.
left bird was across 2 pieces of water, and very technical mark. And then your middle bird came out on a little peninsula, short indent, kind of like an indented triple, but very spread out. And then the go bird was again very technical, where you needed to go through 2 pieces of water. And then Flurry, being the cheaty dog that she is, ran around both of those, but picked up the marks. Sent her for the middle bird, and she picked up that clean. And the third bird, which I knew the judges were really clear, they said that if we feel that you had a handle in the area, we will tell you that we felt you had a handle in the area. And I could tell where that area was. So when I sent Flurry for it, she actually took a good line. She made the area of the fall. She went a little deep and then started to come back in. And I could see there was a line that I had said that if she gets to that point, I'm going to handle her. So, and I did. I cast her right back to the bird. And as she was coming in, they said, Margot, we're giving you a handle in the area. You're free to run your blind. And then I think she one or two whistled the blind on that one. So, and then she did her honor. And she was much better behaved on the line after taking a couple of evenings of having some conversations with her.
Okay,
Yeah. So,
so-
that was that.
So now you've got an upland test, right? I mean, do they move right directly into that, or do you have a day off the end of the upland, or how
Well,
does that work?
you run out that afternoon and you start training for it. As soon as you know you're good to go, you go out and you find some birds and you start training for upland. And I'm really glad I did, because she was giving me some control breaks on the flushes when we were training. So we got in some good corrections with her. And you know, when you go, the way they do it now, it's a little bit different. You remember the upland we used to do through Missouri headwaters, right?
Mhm.
So the way they do it now is you have a walk up as a cold honor, and they have that station set up first. So you go through there, you do the cold walk up honor, then you go back in the holding blind and wait for the next dog to come up. Then you do the walk up again, and your dog actually goes and gets the bird the other dog is honoring. And then if you pass that, then you're invited to go over to the field for the flush. And it's just a one flush. All you have to do is engage one bird and be steady to the wing and shot. And they had like, I don't know, they had like 3 or 4 fields going at the same time on both sides. So, and they just staggered it. So once you get through there, they got it ribboned off about where that bird was. And then when she engaged the bird, it flew back towards me, but I still hit the sit whistle and shot the gun. They shot in a safe direction. She was standing and she wasn't moving at all. But so they look at that as like repositioning, and that's okay. As long as she wasn't on a full out break for the bird, she was good. And then they just tell you to reheel your dog. They take your gun and they ask you to have her quarter out in another direction, like 5-10 yards, and then she's done. So that was it. But boy, whew, it's an emotional roller coaster, I will tell you that.
What do they typically use for the upland part of that? Is it always pheasants, or is it sometimes pheasants one year, checkers the next? Tell us about that.
It's typically been chuckers. I know, because of the cost. Pheasants are a lot more expensive. And they are doing, and they have gone away from the boxes where they just drop them. They were all natural flushes, which was really good to see. I'd rather see that than seeing the Higgins boxes where they drop them. But when you drop a pheasant out of a Higgins box, they take off running like a roadrunner, and you have a lot more no birds. Excuse me.
Okay, well, let's go back around the horn real quick. Tyler, just tell us if you had fun and you plan on going again, and just give me your overall quick thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, I had fun, right? I mean, I certainly learned a lot. I mean, knowing it was my first grand, right? I mean, I knew going into it that I had a lot to learn, and, you have to go to learn, right? I mean, you can look at the test diagrams and you can call people and everything as much as you want, but until you're there, right? And like Margot said, your emotional roller coaster, right? You sit on your bucket, you don't really know. So yeah, I mean, I had fun. It's always good to try something different with the dogs. I'll definitely go back. I mean, Mike made a comment. I mean, it's a lot of time off, right? So for me, I mean, our family is from Missouri. We came from Missouri, so I mean, if the Grand is in that part of the world, right, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, somewhere, I mean, it's easy for us to go and see family, run the Grand, come home. That makes it a lot easier for us. So we'll for sure do it again. Probably trying our best to coincide it and make it a family vacation, right? Makes it a little easier for an amateur like us to take that much time off. So, but yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll go again and we'll actually have a green ribbon. So.
All right, thanks, Tyler. Now, Mike
Yep.
and Terry, you guys kind of said you probably wouldn't go again, but would you ever consider sending your dogs to a pro to run?
So like Pliny, I ran him in the Grand when he was 2.5 years old, and we went out in the 4th series. And then the next year I sent him to Chris Job and he ran him in the Grand and he passed. So he has a Grand pass. I'm not saying that I would never go again, but probably once I retire, when I have time where I'm not eating up all my vacation time to do that, I would probably consider doing it again. As far as sending a dog to a pro, I would say no after that time, because I got a ribbon, but it has no value to me, because like I've trained my dogs, and that's like, it's like my personal challenge to do all these things. Like I have 2 QAA dogs. They have master titles or HRCHs, and it's me doing that thing. So I don't get anything out of a pro doing it for me, because you don't get to see it. You don't know what happened. It has no value to me.
Well, I think a lot of amateurs feel exactly that way. And I am, for one, that likes that as well. I just been around the block a long time. I know what to do, and I feel comfortable training and running my dogs in competition. So let's wrap it up with Margot. I know, Margot, you've ran a lot of these.
Yeah.
And you said you're probably gonna take a little bit of a break from the Grand, but just give me
I
your
am.
insight.
For me, I mean, I was very, very fortunate to have Mike and Terry meet me halfway, and we kind of caravan down there. But coming back, I was pretty much by myself. But it's a long way to go by yourself. So unless I had somebody going with me, it's just really hard on me as I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So, and if I was retired, then I could take as much time as I need to travel there. I could take, I don't need to put in 12-hour days driving just so I can get back to go to work.
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot of stuff hinged on this. I mean, you really need to know that you got a consistent dog. And I honestly felt that all of our dogs were very consistent, and they had every chance to getting a green ribbon. I really did. I mean, the only one that I felt was a wild card was Mel, only because he's been kind of a crazy dog over the last year or so. But I think knowing that you got a consistent dog kind of helps you decide whether to go or not, for me. But I would probably go again, but like I said, I don't know if I want to make that trek alone anymore. It's a little hard.
Well, I appreciate your insight on all that. And I think just from my perspective, the HRC, I guess the SRS is the same way. They don't move out west. They kind of stay in that southeast time zone, don't they?
Well, they do. But the SRS is growing. It's in the big scheme of things. The SRS is fairly young, if you want to look at it. It's been going on for quite a few years, but the growth has just started to happen over the last 5 or 6 years. So, and our goal is to bring an amateur event out here for sure. See if we can maybe help it grow a little bit more. But the Grand has kind of painted themselves in a corner, the same as the Master National, with the amount of dogs. And there's not a lot of pieces of property where you can run. We've had 10 flights, and 10 flights is a lot of property. So 5 land and 5 water, and then you add the upland to it. So there's a very, very few places where we can actually host it and have it be a good quality test.
Yeah, I agree. So you're the point contact for the club for folks that are interested in thinking about maybe going to the Grand. You'll have the the most insight, I take it.
I do. I am, but in the big scheme of things, I am still very much a freshman in the world of the Grand. 2 Grand hunting retriever champions does not make you a professional about doing it. I'm just got a lot of luck and had some good dogs. So that's really it. And just, I don't know, I'm trying to be as humble as I can about it, because it's, you know, just as quickly as you got there, you can fall down the stairs as well. So
Yeah. Well, I have to give kudos to you, because you've been up in Montana for how long now? It's
15 years.
Yeah, and you brought the HRC up here with you, and it's grown quite a bit in this region.
Yeah. I didn't bring it with me. It kind of followed me out here.
No, I think you brought it with you, and you got us all hooked into it.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that very much, Mike. I mean, and I think, you know, your videos and stuff that you put on the club Facebook page and is really inspiring people to get out there and try some different things with their dogs. And I think that that's really critical as well. But I, you know, do want to give kudos for Mike and Terry and Tyler. Mike and Tyler really did a lot of the pre-grand setups that we worked on. And they challenged me with my dogs a lot. The first day we went to training, ugh, it was ugly. I was ready to pack up and go home.
Well, that's good.
But yeah.
Well, it's good. Good to see that you guys, well, not only Treasure State members, but you guys are members of other clubs as well down in Idaho. And hopefully this little video we can be shared with other clubs and stuff and give you some insight on the HRC. I guess in spring and the fall grand are pretty much the same, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
Problem
guys.
with people like us is the spring grand, you don't have the time to be in the water before you go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not like, in my opinion, for us, it's not even an option. Because your water work has to be tight before you go to the grand. And if you're not in the water, it's not gonna be tight.
Yeah.
You know?
For those of us in the northern half of the country.
Yep,
Yes.
yep, exactly.
Yeah, that is an issue. Okay, guys, you have any other thoughts? I think that's pretty much it. You good?
No, I
Good.
just want to thank you
All
for
right.
doing this, Mike. I
Yep.
think it'll be good.
Yes.
All right. Hey, if you got some pictures of you guys down in the grand, send them to me and I'll add them into this video.
Okay. I don't know if we have any.
I don't think we're,
There's some good pictures from Mark Atwater's group from Margot on the line. I know in like the second series, I know there's a couple that got posted on the Grand's Facebook page of Margot. So
Yeah, I like the one where she's
yeah.
peering out of the crowd. I thought that was hilarious. All right, guys, thanks. I appreciate your
Thank you.
time.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mike.
Mike.
All right,
Bye
bye.
bye.
thanks.
Bye.